Welcome to Old Classic Car, and in this collection we're looking at the Austin A40 Farina, the Mk1 and Mk2 A40. And to begin with, XYJ659 is the registration, and the car is a Mk1 Austin A40 Farina, a Countryman no less. This is the rare variant with the split tailgate arrangement. You can just about see the upper tailgate there up in the background there. This car was registered in August of 1960. Very sharp looking car indeed, I think. There's a rear three-quarter view of the same car on mini light style wheels, and you can see that very, very practical split rear tailgate arrangement, which was a feature of the A40 Countryman. The saloon was introduced in 1958 and the Countryman came along a year later in 1959. And here we have an example of the Mk2 Austin A40 Farina. The Mk2 was introduced in 1961. This one's on Ross style wheels. BTB 452A is the registration. Registered November 1962 and currently showing as sawn, i.e. Off the road at the moment. And here we've got a period photograph at a BMC service facility of a Mk1 A40 Farina in Farina grey with a black roof, XGW310. It doesn't show as being registered, but here clearly it's being tested for water leaks. The car is used, it's not a brand new car, but clearly there have been some problem with leaks. Okay, back to the Austin A40 Mark II, and here we have a 1967 registered Mark II A40 taking part on the Tour of Cheshire historic car rally just a few years ago. This was at Rednall near Ellesmere in Shropshire at the karting track. And next up we go down to the Haynes Motor Museum MPR 931. This is a February 1959 car, quite an early example of the Mark I, with the Flying A incorporated into the centre bonnet strip. That wouldn't be a feature on all Mark Is. This car has been off the road since about 1992. And now a period photo, one of several period photos to feature in this collection, and we have an A40 saloon. You can see the much smaller boot lid opening of the saloon compared to the Countryman that we were looking at before. Again, it's a Mark I and it looks like it's picnic time. There's the old camping gas stove and so on. Now here we have an A40 that was for sale many, many years ago, and again it's an early-ish example of the Mark I with the Flying A in the middle of the bonnet there. DRS 619A, it's a 59 car, this one. And yeah, that's quite a solid example, and you don't see too many of them finished in black. There's a rear three-quarter view of the same car. It's a saloon once again with the fixed rear window and just the narrow opening boot lid, which is a lot less practical than the Countryman, I think. You can see this is also an early Mark I because it's got the very small number plate light in the middle of the rear bumper there, a little domed light. Later Mark Is would have a horizontal light which was much larger. Okay, now we have 219 DTA, and as you can see by the scan of the ticket on the right there, I took this all the way back in 1990 at Clumber Park. The historic rally cars came through and the modern rally cars came through later in the day, but yeah, this was Clumber Park on a very damp November day. Now to Alton Park, this was much more recently, another example of the Mark II Austin A40. Many, many extra badges on the front of this one. We've got a BMC Drivers Club badge, which is an organisation set up for drivers and owners of BMC lorries and vans back in the 1950s. There's a rear three-quarter view of the same car, and this is quite unusual. This is a basic model. No overriders on the bumper and the fixed rear side windows. More often than not you see those with the stainless steel surrounds and they open, they're hinged on the forward edge and they pop out at the back. But this has got the fixed windows, as you can see with those thick rubber seals. And here you go, this is a Mark I Deluxe, and you can see the rear opening side windows on this particular car. 601 UXL is the registration. I'm guessing that's not its original number. This car was put on the road in June of 1961 and it still shows as being taxed, and by this point in time it no longer had the little A in the middle of the bonnet there on the strip. Down to Malvern, quite a few years ago in the mid-2000s, this was PMU 967F. This is a Mark II Countryman, put on the road in December of 1967, and happily it still shows as being taxed. I mean, it was in lovely condition when I took this photograph all those years ago, and hopefully it's still the same now. Back to the Rednall karting track, and again I think this was a Tour of Cheshire, yeah, and a lovely Mark I Austin A40 Farina here on an Irish registration, mini light wheels, and no doubt many, many modifications under that bonnet, I have no doubt at all. Carrying on, another period photograph here, and we have What model is this one? This is a Mk1. You can see just about there the wheelbase is varied a little bit. The Mk1 had a shorter wheelbase than the Mk2, even though the overall body length was about the same. They just moved the rear axle back a little bit on the Mk2s. Here we've got another Mk1 3131 NK. Sadly, that wonderfully original registration number is gone, and it's now on a 2006 Ford of all things. Someone has ripped the original registration and ID from this car just to make it a private number plate on a more modern car. What a shame that is too. Here we have a side view, a period side view of a Mk2 Austin A40 parked in the street somewhere. There's another Austin behind it as well. How exciting is that? And we have a period roof rack on this particular car. Another wonderful A40 in much more recent times, TPB 428F. This is a Mk2 Countryman, as you can see by the rear tailgate there. This one was put on the road in February of 1968. It currently shows as being sawn, i.e. declared off the road, so hopefully it's not too far off going back on the road. If you know anything about this particular car, let me know please in the comments. Here we've got a brochure scan for the Mk1. This brochure dates to about 1959 or 1960 and clearly was issued by a garage in Carlisle, going off that original stamp at the top right corner there. This is in North Wales. This was taken in Llandudno not that long ago. We've got 7647ED, an immaculate example of the Mk2 Austin A40 Farina. What a great looking car that is. Initially they had the 948cc engine of the Mk1s, but it wouldn't be long before they'd switch to the 1098. Okay, we've got a restoration project A40 here on the trailer. There's a Bedford CA on the back of the lorry as well, so two for the price of one with this one. But yeah, hopefully that was going on to a new life. If you recognise this car, obviously I don't know what the registration number was, but if you recognise this car and can provide any updates on it, please pop a note in the comments as before. Okay, 9350ML. This one, now intriguingly, I mean this photo was from a few years ago, but this car shows as no longer registered. That registration number doesn't show up on a quick check of DVLA, but is it still around? The car dates to 1961, so it's a very early example of the Mk2. And another Mk2, again on the Tour of Cheshire, this in 2014. Slightly muddy looking grey example with a white roof, no doubt many mods under the bonnet. Got CB lamps on the front and extra bonnet straps as well to stop that bonnet flipping up. But yeah, that looks a very sound straight car indeed. And this is the A40 Owners Club stand at one of the big NEC classic car shows just a couple of years back. The A40 Owners Club does a grand job of helping keep these A40s on the road, so if you own one of these fine little cars, make sure you check out the Owners Club, because the work that they do and the spare scheme in particular is second to none really. Okay, HRX 390D, the next one. This is Mk2 A40, looking a little bit lived in this particular photo from many years ago. A quick look on Google Images show that this car has actually been restored now as a historic rally car and is in much cleaner condition, so it's great to see that this one's still around as well. Lovely old photograph now of MDJ698. This one's no longer registered, unsurprisingly. It was registered in St Helens in mid-1960. Of course, the A40 was based very much on the much earlier A35, the curvy A35. The running gear was all but identical on the Mk1 A40. Okay, RVS 590. This is a fairly early example of a Mk2. This one was registered in May of 1962. And it still shows as being registered with DVLA, albeit untaxed since 2001. So is this car still around? This was in the corner of a scrapyard in Wales that I took this particular photograph. Now we're at Tatton Park, I think. The Tatton Park Classic Car Show, ANC 534A. This one was put on the road initially back in July of 1961 and still shows as taxed. That's Farina grey with a black roof. That was a standard colour offering for the Mk1 A40s. Back to the NEC and a rear view of another A40 Countryman, a Mk2 Countryman. You can just about see the different dashboard compared to the Mk1s. The Mk1s all had grey painted metal dashboards. Regardless of the outer colour, the dashboard was always Farina grey for some reason, but this is the later Mk2. Talking of A40 Mk1s, we have a base model here. Well, it's got the Deluxe's bumper overriders, but the non-opening rear side windows. 3653WU is the registration. Is this car still around? I'm not really sure, to be honest. Let me know if you know There's another BMC beauty alongside of Riley Elf. Now, Speedwell. Speedwell, the tuning company, they would sell you a brand new Speedwell A40 at the beginning of the 1960s. You had the choice of the Sport, the Grand Touring or the Super Sport. Do any of these survive, these original cars? Supplied and souped up by Speedwell. Are there any still around? Plenty of modded A40s around, but any Speedwells? Here's one that's fallen on very hard times indeed. Parked alongside an Austin Cambridge. This is an A40, a Mk1 A40 saloon. And again, what's happened to this one? Does anyone know where this particular car is now? I'd love to know. It doesn't look too bad. Someone's obviously had it for the number plates. And what a shame that is. FPH 41B. We've got a rally prepared 1964 Mark II Austin A40 here, being given the beans on the tour of Cheshire a few years back. It's got midget Ross style wheels on this particular car. No doubt of the mods beneath that matte black bonnet. What's the story with this one? There's a rear view of the same car, Mark II A40 Saloon, of course. Got extra lights on the back there, reverse lights, and no doubt many other mods indeed. Yeah, the badge position was different on the Mark IIs as well. And the boot lid handle also differed. So the two panels, the boot lids on the Mark 1s and the Mark IIs aren't directly interchangeable. Next up we have a left-hand drive Austin A40 complete with sturdy roof rack, but much more than that I do not really know. You can see one of those stick-on demister panels in the rear window. It's surprising how many A40s seem to have one of those fitted. As we'll see a little bit later in this video, I've got a photo of my car with such a thing as well. Now, this belonged to a friend of mine. He restored this magnificent machine. It's a Mark II A40 Countryman, and he's converted it into a one-piece tailgate. Now, Innocenti, they built the A40 and the license, the A40 Combinata, and that had a one-piece tailgate, but sadly the British cars didn't have standard. But yeah, this is a Mark II on wire wheels with Mark I wings on it. So it's an interesting little car, very, very unique. I assume this is still around somewhere. I know he did an extensive restoration on this one just a few years ago. Okay, next up in this collection of A40s, we've got this one. This is a Mark II that I bought many, many years ago when we lived at our first house. There's an Ashley 1172 just on the side there on the left. But yeah, the A40 was up for sale for £100 locally, and I couldn't resist it for £100. I think it actually ran quite sweetly, so I wonder where that one is now. I'll have to see if I can find out the registration. Okay, back to Alton Park, and we've got UAS 744, another race prepared Austin A40 Farina Mark I. The Mark Is had the split braking system of the A35, so hydraulic to the front wheels and the rods over to the back axle. So it's a bit of a bits of the braking system. That would only be remedied with the Mark II, like we are looking at here, ELY 866C. That is a 1965 registered Mark II, quite a few mods, different wheels. Just about see twin SU carburetors under the bonnet as well, so that should be quite an interesting little car to drive. Back to the oldie worldy photographs now, and a side-on view of a single tone Austin A40. This is a Mark I. Like I say, the Mark II, the overall body length was the same, but they did actually move the rear arches and the rear axle back a little bit, just to give the rear seat passengers a little bit more leg room, just a few inches. Got another black Mark I here, seen at Malvern in about 2005 or 2006. OEE 137 is the registration of this one. It currently shows as sawn, i.e. off the road, and first hit the road in May of 1960. Oh, here's a little book. Who remembers these? The Cassell book of the Austin A40 Farina. All sorts of different cars had these little books produced for them just to help you keep them on the road. This is one that I picked up many years ago when I ran the A40 as my daily car. The car there is a Mark II. It's, like I say, slightly longer wheelbase. There's another one, a very distinctive registration on this one, 5230R. This is a 1963 Mark II A40 maroon and black. It's got a 1275 engine and shows as currently being taxed, so that's good news. This was at Malvern, again in about 2005 or 6. One year I went, there was all sorts of A40s. Next up, 986 LDV in the same venue, Malvern, down in Worcestershire. This one is a mid-1962, a July 62 registered car. It still shows as being taxed on the road, and it has the 948cc engine, as was fitted to just the early Mark IIs, later replaced by the 1098. Okay, another race-prepared Mark I Austin A40 here, and again, you can just about see the dashpots of the twin carburetors fitted to this particular racing car. Close in view now of the Mk1 Austin A40, this one YVS 887. That's probably a reissued number. I don't think that would be an original number. This car was first put on the road in September of 1959. It shows as taxed, original 948cc engine, and last change of owner not that long ago, just March 2023. Now 378 kbm. That's a March 1962 Mk2 A40, again taxed as well, with a 1098cc engine. Unusual colour scheme, black with a grey roof. Bit more historic rally action now with 724 EHY, a Farina grey Austin A40. That was a standard colour scheme, Farina grey body and a black roof, although you could get them to special order with a grey body and a grey roof, as we'll see when I show some photographs of my own A40 a little later in this collection. And there's a look at the driver and passenger compartment of that rally prepared Mk1. Like I said before, all the Mk1s with the metal dashes like that have a Farina grey dashboard for some reason. Doesn't matter what colour the main body is, the dashboard should be that colour. Wonder why that is. Back down to Malvern many moons ago, we've got 21 VKN, another very distinctive registration number, and happily it still shows as being on that car. It's a Mk2 A40, of course, still taxed, and this one put on the road in November of 1962. Like I said before, there was a good gathering this particular year at Malvern of A40s, and it was great to see them all together. And here we have a race-prepared A40 in hot pursuit of a Hillman Imp at Alton Park. Continuing this look at Austin A40 Farina, we have a lineup here. We've seen some of these cars individually already. In the foreground we've got PMU 967F. I think we've already seen a photograph of that one, a Mk2 Countryman from 1967. Alongside it another Mk2 and then a Mk1, which is 3131NK, which lost its number. Okay, another period photo here, great street scene, and in the foreground A40 Farina Mk1 944 ENP. That one doesn't show as being registered anymore, so presumably it's been scrapped a long time ago. That's a Worcestershire area registration number, which came into being in June of 61. Okay, 4 photos now of random A40s. We've got that 3131NK on the right, but most interesting is that one on the bottom left that someone's made into a pickup of all things. BLV 793A. It shows as untaxed since 1995. Currently yellow, so what's that? What's the story with that one? Where is it now? Okay, 395 GBH. Unless I'm much mistaken, this belongs to the editor of the excellent A40 Club magazine. Beautiful red example, black roof and original cross-ply tyres as well. That'll be a great little car to drive around in, I'm sure. I used to drive mine every day and I really miss it. GUX 948D now, another A40 Mk2. This one shows as being taxed and on the road, registered August of 1966, and it has the larger 1275cc engine out of a midget in it. Obviously the A40 only ever came with either the 948 or the 1098 engine. Now we spotted this one in the car park a few years ago, the car park of the Bath Park and Ride, Bath or Bath 287XKK. Sadly that registration number has been ripped off it and is now on an Aristocat, a replica of an XK140 Jaguar. What a shame that is. That's a great old car, that is. Lovely condition, Ross style wheels on it. But yeah, when this car loses its original registration, I just think it's such a shame after all these years that someone just takes a number off just for a vanity or just to make a few quid selling it onto the private plate market. What a shame that is. Wonder what it's registered now. If you know, please let me know in the comments. Okay, my old A40 820 FTT. This is back in about 1990 or 91. That's my mate's Prefect parked alongside it. And this was outside the halls of residence at the Polytechnic in Stafford, now part of the University of Staffordshire, but back then it was just a Polytechnic, and that was the car. And this is the original delivery letter for my A40 when my great aunt and uncle bought it new in 1960. We now have pleasure in advising you that your new Austin A40 Deluxe Saloon, finished in Farina grey, has been received from the works and we are preparing it for the road. Several of these old letters survive, fortunately, with the car. There's my aunt, and my great aunt rather, and the little Austin A40 in the early 1960s. I've still got that AA badge off the front ready to go back on when the car one day gets restored. I love the the tiger print or leopard print steering wheel cover on it. That one had long since disappeared by the time we got hold of the car. There's another photo of the same car on a different occasion, and you can see one of those stick-on rear demister things in the back window, and a little Lucas reverse light there as well. I'll have to reinstate that as well. Nice caravan. Is that an Eccles? This is another photo. There's my little grey A40 there at the back, and I just spotted this other blue one at the side of the road, so I thought great opportunity for a photograph. This would have been about 1991 or 1992. 662 BOV is the other car. That's been untaxed since 97, but is it still around somewhere? Do you know where that car is now? Now we're down at Goodwood, the racing circuit, for the revival meeting, and a lovely bright red Austin A40 Mark 1 here on some very distinctive period alloy wheels. But yeah, in that red and black colour scheme, that looks fantastic. What a great little car that is. Back to the oldie worldy photos for a moment. We've got WXN 718. Wonder what happened to this car. It's a London registered car. That series, WXN, came into being in March of 1959, so this will be a 1959 car, parked alongside a Mark 1 Ford Consul. Yeah, I wonder where that is now. Now, this is an intriguing one. This is a replica of an Austin A40 van. Only a few hundred vans were made by the factory, and they all went for export in different places around the world. Apparently Australia had a few of them. This car shows as being sawn, so someone's made this into a van just to replicate the old works produced vehicles from the 1960s. Now we're back in that Welsh scrapyard for this one, and we've got a Mark II A40 here. I'm guessing it probably got to the end of the road, and I'm surprised if it ever came out of this scrapyard in one piece, which is a real shame because actually it doesn't look too bad. Beneath that cracking paint, it's actually probably quite a sound little car. And here we are back at Goodwood Revival just a few years ago, and this is Andrew Jordan and Mike Jordan's race prepared Mark II, registered 590 MOX. Still quite a few of the old Austin A40 Farinas to come in this particular collection. If you remember owning one of these, please let me know. Here we've got BJC 487C. That's a Mark II. This was at Weston Park quite a few years ago now. Great little car, that one. We've got another photograph of that one coming up in a moment. There we go, rear three-quarter view, again of BJC 487C, a 1965 Mark II Austin A40 Farina. JC, if memory serves, is a North Wales registration series, but look down the side, it looks in really, really nice condition. I bet that's a really low mileage car. I'd love to know more about that one. And here's an interesting Farina grey car, all over Farina grey. Like I say, that was an option at BMC garages here in the UK, but this is a left-hand drive French registered example of the A40. This was on the club stand just, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. Same colour interior and body as my own car, but in somewhat better condition. Yeah, what a great little car that is. Many years ago we were holidaying in southwest Wales and we came screeching to a halt when we spotted this at the side of the road. A very, very forlorn Mark II A40. Now, whether it had been bought for parts to aid the restoration of another car, I'm not quite sure, but was this one restored? Possibly. There's certainly lots of parts missing. Looking a little bit happier, in the 1960s we have a 1964 Mark II A40. A couple of the old no-tech blue spot lamps on the front of this one. Nice period roof rack as well, and there's that an Anglia 105E estate in the background there. Picnic time perhaps. Yeah, great stuff. At the 2023 Bicester Heritage meeting, I think it was Flywheel, we've got OFX 926, a race prepared Mark 1 A40, and looking very purposeful indeed on its lowered suspension, etc, etc. What a great event that was, and it's lovely to see this A40 there. Now back to the oldie worldy photographs. I do believe that is the Alps in the background, and here we have a grey, all over grey, Mark II Austin A40, a fairly early example of the breed in fact. Like I say, the Mark IIs were introduced in 1961 and produced all the way to 1967, after which time about 172,000 or so had been built. Now, FF7387 beautiful, immaculate black A40. Sadly, someone has had the number off this one as well. It's now on a 2008 Honda. So what this car is registered as now, who knows? But such a shame for such a great condition car to be robbed of its original registration. What a tragedy. Okay, new CE13, we're down at Goodwood now. This is the famous ex-Doc Shepherd race car, based on the Mark 1, lowered, interesting camber on the front axle, so on the front wheels rather, so clearly a lot of modifications under the bonnet and to the suspension of this particular car. And parked alongside it was this, a race-prepared Mark 2. Now, there's, like I say, the Mark 2s, they had hydraulic brakes all round to all four corners, whereas the Mark 1 was hydromechanical, hydraulic to the front, mechanical to the rear. The sign on the back there says 1959, but the Mark II wasn't around in 1959. Okay, another period motor manual here. Who remembers these, the Ollie Slager motor manuals? This is one I've got on file here. This covers both the Mark 1 and the Mark II, Saloons and Countryman estate car. A Sunday Times series. Now on the front there, a Mark II version of the breed. Now we're down at the British Motor Museum here at Gaydon, and they've got this lovely Farina grey with black roof Mark 1 A40 on display there. We've seen it on a number of occasions. Whether these cars actually get run up anymore, I don't know. I don't think they've moved for a little while, but certainly kept in really, really lovely condition. That's great to see. And how about this? Howell 654D, a 1966 Mark II A40 in red and black. You can see a radio aerial on the front wing there, so suggesting in-car wireless in this particular car. But that looks to be in fantastic condition. What a great little car that is. There's a rear view of the same A40, and we can see that it's a Countryman, again with that very, very practical split rear tailgate. The shape of the car really lends itself to that split rear tailgate arrangement. It's a shame they didn't do the one-piece tailgate like Innocenti did with their cars, because that would make it super practical. Back to the slightly earlier cars now, 549 XUX, that's probably not its original registration number. This car was put on the road in October of 1959, still with a little flying A in the middle of the bonnet there. Yeah, a very, very tidy car. This one was photographed after quite a bit of work had been done to it, I believe. This is a slightly earlier photo of the same car. At this point in time it had stick-on number plates and a bit of work done on the paintwork, but I think since then it's all been tidied up as the previous photo shows. But yeah, this is a deluxe with the opening side windows and the bumper over riders. May even have a heater if you're really lucky. And here we've got a very faded maroon Mark II WWM 817. This one's been untaxed since 1982. It's an early 1963 car, but what's the latest on this one? Has it been restored? Is it mid-restoration, or is it still waiting for a little bit of TLC? And to round out this collection of Austin A40 Farina pictures, we've got this. This is an old family photo. One of Mum's cousins using an A40 Mark 1 as their wedding car. Clearly decorated very much with wedding car duties in mind. And yeah, a very, very late 1960s scene. And that photo of a lovely Mark 1 rounds out this little look back at the Austin A40 Farina in both Mark 1 and Mark II guise. If you've got any new old stock panels for an A40, especially a boot lid, please let me know, because I would very much like one for my Mark 1 project. But yeah, thanks very much for watching. Please check out the rest of the channel. Likes, comments, subs and all that. Very welcome as always. More soon. Bye for now.